Common question, issue, and sometimes a complaint revolving around the total gym or other sliding bench trainers revolves around this whole idea about progression, or simply how does one progress on the machine from each set, or how do they up the intensity, progress in the intensity, or weight that's being lifted or stress to the muscles, or just how do you progress from workout to workout to know that you're actually making actual progress on the machine, or just knowing that you're seeing some sort of positive adaptation in your body using a total gym. Now, this is a very loaded topic with many variables at play, and one that is deeply linked with your own personal goals or motivations, or just why you're simply using a total gym. But in this video, I'm going to go over some concepts on progression, some general tips. I'll answer the question specifically on some ways you can evaluate your progress, and I'll personally kind of share how I view just utilizing the total gym and kind of my general recommendation to most people to approach this machine based on a lot of the goals and feedback I've heard from most people that do take up one of these types of devices or equipment. So if you guys like this content, you guys want to see more of it, as always, please like and subscribe. It's always helpful. Now, to start out, this is a very good question, since for most people it's somewhat natural to want to know and sometimes even calculate improvement once they start using a total gym or really any piece of equipment. Intuitively, we kind of understand that we have to progress to improve, and we naturally kind of know that we're trying to strive towards progress or some sort of linear progression when we go to the gym, because it's very easy to think that way. We know if we go to the gym, if we want to get stronger, if we're seeing progress, we should see kind of the weight on the bar or the weight on the machine kind of gradually going up from where we initially started. Things should start to feel easier. Maybe we're running, a longer distance, or running maybe quicker, or we're increasing our steps, on the stair climber or whatever. And sometimes these are not necessarily, like I said, just performance things, but a lot of times these are visual things. These are things we can simply kind of see. We can see the weight being added to the bar. We can see the miles kind of going up, whatever. At first glance, most people would look at a total gym and say it's also kind of relatively intuitive in how you'd actually progress this. You see this tower height, you see this little pin, and you kind of naturally assume, okay, if I want to make it harder, I just raise the incline. But also, if I'm making it harder myself or I'm seeing progress, I should kind of be, being basically at a higher incline to when I was before, just like you'd be lifting heavier weight than you were before. The problem is that relative intensity in, say, increasing the tower height really is not that much. I did a video previously talking about how much weight is actually supposedly on the incline, and again, that's approximate a couple videos ago, which you guys could check out. But really, we're talking like a few pounds here and there, depending on your body weight on each incline level. So most people complain, or they're right, or they kind of say to me, I've maxed out this machine relatively quickly. This isn't for everybody, but a lot of people have this problem where they've gotten the machine recently, and in a relatively short period of time, they started kind of working on a certain level or certain incline, and now all of a sudden they find themselves, they're pressing or they're rowing at the highest incline possible. This isn't to say, though, there isn't many other forms to gauge progress in the machine, because there definitely is. But before I even kind of address that concern, because I totally understand that, if you really want to focus on progression, which I'll argue later on, you don't necessarily have to, and don't worry about too much. You'll naturally be progressing on the machine. I'll get into that later. If you really want to focus on progression, you have to objectively be specific about what goal you actually want to progress in. I could and probably will make another future video on this, but this is actually a problem that many people have just in the exercise fitness world in general. People don't really think about why they do the things they do, and if what they are doing is beneficial to their overall goal. I'll give one common example of this. Someone's main goal might be to lose weight, so they hear working out might help you lose weight. They're looking for some form of working out, and and maybe they come across a total gym or something on a YouTube channel like this. They buy a total gym, or maybe it's a treadmill or something else. They start using it consistently for some weeks. Then they start getting upset when they say, hey, I'm not seeing a lot of visual progress. I'm not seeing that weight coming off my body visually in the mirror or whatever. Not knowing or just respecting the fact that the total gym by itself, as an example, might not have that profound of an impact, relative to other means like diet on their overall weight loss. This is important because if you're using a total gym, let's say for increasing pure strength, you might be better pressed to essentially find something that can more precisely train strength through objective means like adding incremental weight to a barbell or dumbbell or something like that. But again, I'm not discouraging that the total gym can't get you strong and can't increase muscle mass and can be an aid to weight loss. I'm just saying, if you really have a clear goal in your head, the easiest way to do that is going to kind of find that path of least resistance. The total gym does, in my opinion, is a great path of least resistance, but in a couple of different key areas, and is really a total package in a number of areas, but I'll get to that when I wrap up the video. Now, to get right to the the point, here are some simple ways to not only measure and record your progress, but these are also just some ways to simply make an exercise harder as well. Lay these variables out. I personally would find this very tedious to sit down and record every aspect of these variables, and honestly I don't think it's really necessary, specifically for my goal, but also I think for a lot of the goals you guys are seeking, which is like basically muscle definition, hypertrophy, but also improving your flexibility, range of motion, making sure you're a little more functional, and also increasing kind of your baseline strength as well. And I think in the grand scheme of things, like I said, I'm jumping the gun here. A lot of this stuff can be accomplished by mixing these following variables that I'm discussing. But if you're going to be kind of like a big stickler about, I want to record exactly how much I'm doing, then you got to be really exact about what you're doing and really just, match the reps and the sets with that specific workout. So here are some things you actually could do if you wanted to like record these things. You definitely could record repetitions, simply just recording the number of reps in a given height with a given exercise you're doing. That obviously goes along with sets. And then for sure, even just the individual workouts, this works out best if you actually have a specific workout you're following, and then you're going to gauge your progress on how fast you completed that, how many reps and sets and at what incline you did, and also recording just your ratings of perceived exertion. How hard did you think that workout was? If you guys follow my workouts or you have your own workouts, a good thing is just to kind of make a note of how hard that workout was, then go back and try and do it again and see, did you improve upon that? Odds are you definitely should. All these performance measurements you should kind of notice definitely a lot sooner rather than later, but a lot of times people kind of don't pay attention to that, and they don't really gauge like kind of how they actually felt in a given period of time. You certainly could record intensity, and by intensity I do mean the tower height. We already kind of established kind of the problems with tower height. I get a lot of questions about resistance bands, about how much resistance is on a certain band and how do I record that and figure out the weight. That gets a little crazy because you don't know, one, the manufacturer, the brands are different. If you got different band sets, I never trust the actual weight that's set on a resistance band because it's variable resistance, meaning the tension or stress that's on you is going to vary as that band stretches out. I would simply say, I have this one product, this one brand of resistance bands. I'm using this one length. I'd record where I attached it, maybe for my chest press, and I would kind of gauge how many repetitions did I get. So you could kind of essentially do like a 1 rep max or a sub rep max, assess how many reps could you get at this tower height with this band attached at this site. And you could do that periodically to kind of assess your progress on the machine. You certainly can take those same ways of doing that and measure things like how hard an exercise was or how many repetitions did you get on like just elevating the machine, like you've seen me do throughout this video. And I also made a video about that a few videos ago. Doing the detached pulley method, so taking the pulley off makes things harder, so upping the intensity that way and recording your reps at a certain tower height. Certainly the time, like I said earlier, just finishing the workouts in a given period of time, kind of speed running through things and kind of seeing if your improvements that way. And definitely as you get older, when balance is an issue, a lot of people don't think about this, but you can measure your progress by simply, before it was hard to sit upright or lean into the exercises, now you're on your knees. I do things a lot of different ways. I'm not saying you have to go on your feet, but my own progression, I noticed like when I do those standing exercises, they used to kind of feel a little weird and kind of iffy if I was doing it, but now I can hop up in the total gym no problem and I feel perfectly fine. And that to me was a progression just to my own, my balance and neuromuscular system. And then certainly movement patterns. Notice how you're progressing. Certain things maybe didn't feel as good or weren't as smooth, and now they feel more comfortable and you're starting to actually feel it in your muscles. So these are all things you can kind of jot down and take note of if you really want to accurately track your progression. Now the problem with tracking every one of these things is that essentially they're all interdependent on each other. Or if they're focused upon, will elicit a different adaptation. Meaning if I focus on doing power, explosive, really quick movements, I should be improving power. If I focus on my muscular endurance, doing a lot of repetitions and less rest time, I'm going to improve my muscular endurance. This is based on the SAID principle, SAID, which is the specific adaptation to impose demands, meaning your body's going to adapt accordingly to the demands placed upon the body. And I've worked with people who literally, and I try and tell them this and I mention this many times, but they can do whatever they want. They have a little logbook and they record every single detail. They'd work out with me and do my workout for the day, but they record everything we did to a T, and they would cross-reference, I did my lat pull down at this weight on this day, not factoring in the point that what exercise did you do before you did that lat pull down at that weight? What was your rest period? How many days off did you have between that body part being worked? So if you start recording every single thing, yeah, there might be some use to that, but it starts to get really accurate on how much you really progress on that exercise and rep range, etc. Now, if you're following these exercises in this workout that's done in the background, you may have noticed that I'm doing a little bit of everything. In fact, part of this workout was initially going to be like a power workout to record for you guys, but I just honestly wasn't feeling it that day, and I kind of moved on, which is kind of something I encourage you guys to do, that if you really want to focus just on your individual muscles, kind of feeling that specific workout. So if something's not really working, I just kind of move on. So you'll see throughout a lot of these workouts, I'm doing things that were sometimes fast and explosive, sometimes they're high reps, sometimes they're low reps. Sometimes I have the machine elevated, sometimes I have that pulley detached. I'm mixing around a lot of things. I have literally zero track about what I did previously, maybe a little bit, or maybe the next set I might increase it or make it harder, but I'm really kind of going off a feeling. Now, slowly starting to wrap this video up, how I personally view progression on this machine and kind of how I encourage you guys to kind of view progression on this machine, given the fact that there's a lot of little variables that I've just discussed before, not to mention your own body weight, how you're leaning into exercise. There's just so many variables. It's hard to be really objective, such as what you would be on like a pair of dumbbells or barbells. And I've gone through that phase too, where I got books full of like my 1 rep maxes and percentages and playing that kind of numbers game. But I don't think that's really not only that useful, it's a very cumbersome way of approaching this particular machine. And personally, my goals right now, I think, are lined up with, I think, majority of people's goals that I've spoken with over the past, and just on this channel as well, that for 90+% of people, generally they're not too concerned about how much maximum weight they want to lift. They want to have a general level of strength and fitness, mobility, range of motion in their joints, a little bit of just aerobic, endurance as well. But they also primarily want to work on just muscular hypertrophy, meaning like just the kind of the shape and definition of their muscles. And to me, this is the best of both worlds. It's not to say maybe I'll go back to traditional strength training and upping my 1 rep max and benches, but you guys saw from this video, I actually did some assessments on that, and that they still didn't really, falter too much. In fact, I didn't mention this, but a few weeks ago, I kind of did another recheck when I was at a gym. And again, I was very surprised by how my 1 rep max and my bench press was still, essentially very strong. And my point is, using a total gym, you can accomplish those goals I said: mobility, a good baseline of strength. Definitely, for sure, across the board, this is up there with any piece of equipment. If you want to improve your muscle definition, muscle hypertrophy, total gym, no question, is hands down awesome for that. You can accomplish all these things together if you just kind of use the machine consistently, 2 to 4 times a week with good form, and most importantly, with emphasis on just stressing and feeling the muscles. That's kind of the big takeaway I want you guys to say when you think about progression. This progression in all those areas will come naturally, but what I mean about like feeling it or stressing it in the muscles, I say that a lot throughout the channel. It's just doing whatever is necessary, switching the grip, manipulating the reps, the sets, going faster, going slower, doing some drop sets, doing something at a high range, and dropping the tower down, or vice versa, going up, doing supersets between 2 different body parts, doing whatever you have to do to keep that focus or to stress a particular muscle. Now, some people might call that like burning in the muscle or whatever. The point is, I want to emphasize my individual muscle that I'm trying to work, or group of muscles if it's like a big area like my back. When you focus on this, it's a stress. It's a specific stress to that muscle tissue. And this stress will necessitate an adaptation. And this adaptation generally starts to elicit in the body really muscle growth. You're signaling to the body like, hey, I'm really stressing these direct muscles specifically. I can really feel it being worked there. That's going to stimulate or predispose the body to adapt, to essentially make the muscle fibers bigger or larger to be able to handle this continued stress, or what we call muscle enlargement, just muscle hypertrophy. Now, while you're doing this, the great thing is, and you guys already know this, is that while you're adapting in this way, you're also going to have other adaptations, such as like muscular endurance and strength, and maybe some power output too as well. But this all somewhat depends on, again, where your emphasis is in these particular areas. So that's what I like about this. I personally like the way my body's been progressing, and someone even commented in the last video about they thought my body looked a little bit bigger since I first started messing around with these sliding bench trainers, kind of full time. And I think that made sense because I was focused more on just pure strength training at the time, which didn't have as much repetitive direct stress to my muscles. I was stronger, but my muscles weren't as more defined at that time. And I was also doing a little more martial arts back then, emphasis as well. But I can tell you, I love the way my body kind of looks recently. I love the way it feels. Most importantly, I'm getting the best of both worlds, and I love how my joints have been feeling too. So all these things to me is just like a total package about why the Total Gym is just, so awesome. Again, it's not to say that I don't have other objective means. You must have some other objective concrete goals and progressions that you are recording, like my Concept 2 rower. Sometimes I do my rowers, and sometimes I have certain numbers I want to hit. But even that I've kind of fallen out of a little bit, and I think we all kind of go through those phases. So if you're getting back into a phase where you want to focus in on something, there's definitely things you can do by, like I said, recording those elements that I recorded earlier. My overall point is that yes, you can implement traditional progression outlined above, but what I find works best, especially for most people using this machine, is to focus more so on being consistent with the machine. Make that the progression that you want to focus on. Make it a progression to increase your days in the machine, progress to different movement patterns that feel comfortable, more exercises, focusing on stressing your muscles. And if you do this, you inevitably will be, progressing or causing your body to adapt to better to handle this machine. Hopefully that was beneficial. This was way longer than I wanted to get into. Got a little passionate in talking about this. Hopefully it makes sense to you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you.